Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a fascinating journey away from the massive capitals and the bustling national parliaments, right down to the absolute foundation of democracy. We're talking about local governments, real power at the grassroots. If you've been looking for a clear breakdown of this chapter and you're wondering how democracy actually impacts your day-to-day life, your neighborhood, or your village, well, you are in the exact right place. Let's get right into it. So, first things first, why do we even need local government? I mean, we already elect representatives to the central and state governments, right? Shouldn't that be enough? Well, imagine trying to fix a broken water pipe in your neighborhood by writing a letter to the Prime Minister's office. Yeah, it just doesn't work. Distant governments, no matter how incredibly efficient they might be, simply cannot manage the rapid, nuanced, and immediate problem-solving that a community needs. We literally need decision-makers who walk the same roads and drink from the exact same water sources as the people they represent. To really see why local governance matters, take the incredible real-life story of Geeta Rathore. Geeta was a housewife in Jamunia Talab, a village over in Madhya Pradesh. Back in 1995, she was elected sarpanch, or president of her Gram Panchayat, and she completely transformed her village. We're talking renovating water tanks, building a new school building, constructing village roads, and even taking a stand against domestic violence. Her community was so blown away by her admirable work that they actually elected her again in 2000. This wasn't some distant official in a suit. This was a local woman wielding grassroots power to drastically improve her own community, a real game changer. But, local government isn't just about building things. It's also about fierce protection. Take the story of Venja Vaisal village in Tamil Nadu. Here, the Gram Panchayat president led this relentless, ultimately successful fight to secure and retain her village's rights over its own land. It just goes to show that strong, vibrant local governments ensure active participation and purposeful accountability. They are the frontline defenders of a community's core interests. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover power at the grassroots, Gandhi's vision made real, the three-tier structure, reserving seats for change, transferring subjects and funds, and finally, the true test of democracy. Section 2. Gandhi's vision made real, the philosophy of decentralization. To really grasp the Indian system of local government, we kind of have to look back at the foundational ideals of the nation's independence. Mahatma Gandhi famously said, "Independence must begin at the bottom. Life will be a pyramid with the apex sustained by the bottom." For Gandhi, true independence didn't just mean replacing British rulers with Indian ones in Delhi. It meant every single village acting as its own self-sustained republic, fully capable of managing its own affairs. The idea is that the national government at the top, the apex, can only stand strong if it's supported by thousands of empowered, self-governing villages right there at the base. However, actually realizing that specific vision, that took some time. For decades after the Constitution was written, local government was just a directive principle. So pre-1992, it was non-justiciable. It was mostly advisory. States didn't absolutely have to empower local governments if they didn't want to. But post-1992, everything changed. The 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments were passed. This was a true watershed moment that turned local government into a uniform constitutional mandate all across India. It was no longer just a nice suggestion, it was hardwired right into the law. Section 3. The three-tier structure. Building the pyramid. Let's move to and see how this builds the Panchayati Raj system. The 73rd Amendment basically set up a uniform three-tier structure for rural areas across the states. At the absolute base, step 1, is the Gram Panchayat, which covers a single village or maybe a small group of villages. Moving up to step 2, we have the intermediary level, known as the Mandal, Block, or Taluka Panchayat, and that groups together several Gram Panchayats. Finally, at the apex of the district level, step 3, is the Zilla Panchayat, covering the entire rural area of a district. It's this beautifully structured hierarchy that makes sure local voices filter naturally all the way up to the district level. Section 4. Reserving seats for change. Democratizing power. Now, setting up local bodies is one thing, but making sure they actually represent everyone in a highly diverse society, that is another challenge entirely. The 73rd Amendment tackled this head-on with a completely revolutionary provision, reserving 1/3 or 33% of all seats in local bodies exclusively for women. And the best part? This isn't just for general members, it applies directly to the powerful positions of chairpersons or adhyakshas at all 3 levels too. Remember Geeta Rathore from a few minutes ago? She actually first came to power in 1995 through one of these reserved seats. This structural guarantee is exactly the mechanism that gave millions of women the platform to finally step into leadership roles. And here is where it gets really clever. This perfectly illustrates the concept of intersecting reservations. You see, the Constitution also mandates reservations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes based on their proportion of the population. The brilliant part is that the one-third women's quota applies within those caste and tribe reservations as well. This intersectionality means that a seat can be simultaneously reserved for a woman who belongs to a scheduled caste or scheduled tribe. It ensures that leadership reflects the absolute true diversity of the population, specifically empowering Dalit and Adivasi women to become Sarpanch. But of course, we need a reality check. Laws on paper operate in a pretty complex social reality. The dominant social groups who previously controlled these villages, they do not eagerly wish to just give up their power. This naturally leads to local tensions and, honestly, an intensification of the struggle for power in these areas. However, we should view this objectively. This tension isn't necessarily a bad thing, and it's certainly not a failure. Whenever you attempt to make democracy more meaningful and legally hand power over to those who have historically been denied it, conflict is simply an expected growing pain of a society moving toward true democratization. Section 5. Transferring subjects and funds. Real power needs real resources. Because, let's face it, real power needs real resources. A locally elected leader literally can't do much if they don't have the legal authority or the money to actually execute their plans. To solve this, the Constitution identified exactly 29 subjects. These were areas of governance that previously belonged exclusively to the state list of subjects, but they were moved to the 11th schedule of the Constitution to be transferred directly to Panchayati Raj institutions. And what are these subjects? Well, the 11th schedule covers the absolute most critical day-to-day needs of citizens. We're talking about agriculture, rural housing, drinking water, roads and culverts, primary and secondary education, as well as health and sanitation. By shifting the management of these 29 functional areas directly to local bodies, the system ensures that the people who are directly affected by these development and welfare services are the very ones managing them. So the crucial point is, how do they actually pay for all this? State governments themselves are often totally strapped for cash. To prevent local governments from having to constantly beg for funds, the Constitution mandates the creation of a state finance commission every 5 years. Think of them as an independent referee. This body examines the financial position of the local governments and decides on the fair distribution of revenues between the state and the local levels. This innovation is absolutely vital because it ensures that the allocation of funds to rural local governments isn't treated like some political game. It becomes a structured, guaranteed lifeline. Section 6. The true test of democracy. Practice over provisions. Okay, so we've seen the impressive constitutional framework, but what does it actually mean in the end? Well, true democracy means the decentralization of power. Having the 73rd and 74th Amendments in our Constitution is an incredible achievement. The laws about local governments are a vital, absolutely crucial first step. But ultimately, democracy dictates that power must be actively shared and exercised by the people. The people in the villages and urban localities must have the power to actually decide what policies and programs they want to adopt. The true test of democracy isn't merely in having legal provisions written down on a piece of paper. It's in the everyday practice and enforcement of these provisions by the citizens themselves. Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative question drawn right from the chapter to ponder. Is a village truly capable of managing its own affairs, or is true democracy still a work in progress? What do you think? Take a look at the local governance in your community. Are the marginalized voices really being heard at the Gram Sabha meetings? Are those 29 subjects actually being managed locally with proper funds? Exploring these questions is honestly the only way to ensure the grassroots remain genuinely powerful. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the structure around you, and I will catch you on the next one.